Hey guys, today we are driving the new 2021 Hyundai Veloster N. And yes, we do have the 8-speed dual clutch transmission. I've been really excited to drive this car. We have some new sport seats for the 21 model year, a few more standard features. This is more expensive now, it's a little over $33,000. But the performance package comes standard for US models, and that's always been the way to get your Veloster N. As you guys know, I'm a pretty big fan of this car. I think it's just a great option in the hot hatch market. It's accessible, it's affordable. This new 8-speed DCT I think makes it a lot more attractive to the majority of buyers. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, it's a really good transmission. Hyundai's done an awesome job tuning this DCT to be fun, engaging, but also just a really high performer too. We've got these same funny rear seats with the two doors on one side and the coupe-like door on the other side. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of fun. A lot of people freak out about it and think it's too weird, but you know what? Weird is kind of cool. There you are, the 2-liter turbo makes 275 horsepower, 260 pound-feet of torque. Ooh, that's a heavy hood. Enough walking and talking. Let's take this thing for a drive. So I've done a full review on the Veloster N. Actually, I've done a few videos on it already a couple of years ago with the manual car. And if you want to hear my full thoughts on the Veloster N, check out those videos. Today we're going to be focusing on the DCT and the performance from that. But just kind of a quick overview. This is a really nice car. It has great Hyundai ergonomics. You get nice reverse cameras, really good Apple CarPlay, Android Auto integration. The sound system is decent. The only complaint that I really have about the N is just the interior looks and feels really cheap. There's a lot of plastic here, but you know what? That's nothing new. Remember the Evo? Remember what the WRX used to look like? Those were great performance cars. Yeah, you still got a bargain basement interior. You get some cool little blue accents, and these new seats do look good. The N logo even lights up in the dark, which is pretty neat. They are very well bolstered. No heated function, but I don't really think you need heated seats with cloth seats. All right, manual handbrake, all the good things. We've got our drive mode selectors down here, 3 drive modes on the left, sport, normal, and eco. And of course your N mode on the right, which is probably what we're gonna be driving in most of the time today. I just wanna hear that exhaust. This is one of the great hot hatches in the current landscape. There really isn't much left. There's this, the Civic Type R. They're all really good options. I love this N for how hardcore and how fun it is to drive. Let's put it into manual mode. Shift the gears ourselves. We have a bunch of different performance displays with this car. That's an interesting CX-9. The paddle shifters feel nice. They're kind of plasticky, but they respond well. They're shaped well. They feel good in hand. You can just play with this gearbox. It feels really nice. Let's do a launch control start. What you have to do here is you go into performance options. You have to be in N mode or N custom, but the differential has to be set to, I believe it's sport. And we're gonna go in and activate launch control. You have to go in and do this in a menu. Left foot on the brake, right foot to the floor. You can adjust your RPM. Let's do 3,200. Spinning into second. There you go, 60 miles an hour. It needs a little bit of time to cool off between launch control runs, but pretty impressive for a front-wheel drive car. I let off just a little bit when the turbo kicked in, just to mitigate wheel spin and wheel hop. It's pretty chilly out today and the tires aren't quite warm yet, but a nice 0 to 60 time for this car. Get some really aggressive shifts at wide open throttle in this Veloster N. I believe if you're beyond 80 or 90% throttle, it'll just kind of give you maximum power between gears. It'll retain boost, and it's almost like it's flat foot shifting, where it feels like it kind of drags the clutch a little bit, and it's pretty neat. I'm a big fan. And then all you have to do, put it into normal, and you're cruising. The state trooper back there can't hear my exhaust popping. Ergonomics in this are great. Cruise control is just regular old cruise control, no radar guided system. You do get steering assist, and as is pretty typical with Hyundai products, it works quite well. You do have blind spot monitoring and lane keep assist. And I believe there's also like collision mitigation, braking, all that good stuff. Lots of safety features in this new Veloster N. You could program a shift noise to kick in at a certain RPM, turn that on or off. It is nice because it does give you a little bit of an auditory sound when it's ready to shift. This is about a 6,750 RPM red line. And in manual mode, you can bounce off that rev limiter all day long. I love this exhaust. It's so entertaining. So what's this car like to drive around normally? It's quite nice. The programming from this 8-speed dual clutch, I will say, is probably some of the best I've ever driven with a dual clutch. It's smooth, it's not jerky or harsh. They've done a really good job making it a livable DCT. Let's get us back into automatic mode here. The shifts are virtually indistinguishable. You can hear the engine shifting, but you don't really feel much. The only time it gives you that lurch is when you're wide open throttle. There's a little bit of wind and road noise, especially from these 19-inch high-performance Pirelli tires. But that's to be expected in a car like this. You can see here, you can change the shift indicator. We're going to turn that off. Not a big fan of the beeps. And N track sense shift is when you're almost wide open throttle. We're going to disable that too, just to see what it's like without those systems. Yeah, it smooths things out a little bit more. I kind of like that, honestly. You gotta love the adjustability and customization in this car. It's probably my favorite thing about the N. One of my complaints about the Civic Type R is that you're just kind of limited in what you can do and how you can set it up from a performance perspective. Not the case here. And of course, if you leave it in drive, you can use the paddles to shift manually, but it'll automatically upshift for you. When you are in N mode, I have it right now in N Custom, which I've set to everything most aggressive except for my suspension settings. I like a little bit of a softer suspension setup. When you are in N mode, it'll only go to sixth gear on the highway. It won't really shift beyond that. So I've actually found it's kind of useful to use manual mode, and that way you can get it to cruise in 8th gear on the highway. Not something you had to worry about with a 6-speed manual transmission car, but something you have to be a little bit aware of in this DCT. Luckily, if you want to pass someone and downshift, it's easy. It's super quick. Look how fast those shifts are. That's awesome. Another cool feature we have is this N-Grin shift. I'm not so sure about the name, but it does fun things. We have the ability to, for 20 seconds, get another 18 pound-feet of torque. So it goes from 260 to 278, and all you have to do is just hit this little NGS button, and it's for passes, it's for just kind of a little bit of fun, and let's hit it and see what happens. Hear just a little bit more of a whoosh from the turbo there. And if you disengage it, it'll pick up kind of where it left off, and then it'll reset after a little bit more time. But it's a great feature. It kind of gets you the highest gear, the most boost, really gives you aggressive shifts between gears. Gimmicky? Yes. Fun? Also, yes. The question that has kind of vexed me all week is, what do I like better? Do I like this Veloster N more than a Civic Type R? And I think the answer is just they're really different cars. Yes, they kind of compete in the same class. The Type R is a lot more expensive than this. And even with this higher price tag, over $33,000, this Veloster N is a fantastic value. You just can't get this performance in a front-wheel drive car anywhere else for the price. I think it's more entertaining and more of a little bit of a naughty child than the Type R. The Type R, even though it looks ridiculous, drives very mature and very refined. This Veloster N, there's not much that's mature about this driving experience. It's incredibly capable and really fast, but it's a hooligan, and I like that about it. Let's put us back into N mode. Full stiff suspension. See how it does around these corners. I really like it with the track sense shift turned off. Yeah, this DCT is fantastic. I think you kind of couldn't go wrong between the DCT or the manual with this car. The manual is good, but it's not the best manual out there. I prefer the Civic Type R's shifter action. You know, the 6-speed in the Veloster N is a little bit rubbery. It's involving, and it's exciting, and it's good. But this DCT is also very good. I don't really think you'd be worse off in this, or have a little bit less fun. You know, a lot of people may prefer this actually. If you live in a city with a lot of traffic and you're in stop and go, just get the DCT. You're gonna have fun in this car. Cruising on the highway here, we're getting around high 20s for MPGs. All week I've averaged around 23 miles to the gallon, but I've been having some fun in this thing, so that's not a surprise. We have a tire pressure monitor here on the screen, which is nice. We can quickly engage steering assist, but again, kind of strange that there's no radar guided cruise control in this car. I was expecting that they would have that, especially with the dual clutch. You can skip 5-mile-an-hour increments with the buttons down here. Wind noise isn't terrible, road noise isn't terrible. It kind of depends on the pavement surface that you're driving on. But this is a very livable car on a daily basis. The suspension is firm, but it's not punishing. My wife is pretty sensitive to that type of stuff, and she didn't really complain yesterday when we were driving it around most of the day. It's kind of on the edge, but I think you could daily this no problem. And if you've come from any modified cars or tuned cars with aftermarket suspension, this is going to feel great. It's really nice to have that adjustability between N mode and normal mode, and you can customize it, put it in custom mode, set all your settings that way. Kind of cool how you set all that up. And then there's the pops from the exhaust. The steering tightens up. Oh, there's just so much grip, you guys. It's awesome. And there is something magical about a well set up front wheel drive car with a limited slip diff. The electronics limited slip in this gives you so much grip, so much confidence coming out of corners. It really gives this car insane levels of traction. Off the line, yeah, sure, it's still a front wheel drive car, and you're not going to get those launches or that traction off the line that you would with a rear wheel drive or all wheel drive car. But once you're going, it doesn't matter. If anything, this has less drivetrain loss than an all wheel drive car. I mean, one of the most commented comments I see for the Type R and the Veloster N is like, oh, I wish it were all wheel drive. Well, I don't, because for one, it wouldn't be as fast. You'd get a lot of drivetrain loss. It'd be more expensive. It'd be heavier. This DCT is already about 90 pounds or so heavier than the 6-speed manual, so that's something to consider. I don't think it really affects it in the handling front, and it is quicker in a straight line, so that helps. But yeah, I don't think cars like this should be all-wheel drive. They have their time and place. You get a little bit of lift-off oversteer from this car sometimes. It's fun. So anyway, highlights. Veloster N. First impressions are really good. I like what Hyundai is doing here. They have made this thing so much fun and so much more of a performance powerhouse than the standard Veloster. It's incredible that this is still the same car. It doesn't feel like it. This powertrain is just so exciting. The steering, the suspension, the chassis tuning here feels really great. The steering is well weighted. The way the differential interacts, it's just a very comprehensive and cohesive driving experience. This car is so good at everything that it does. And these drive mode buttons on the steering wheel, they're brilliant. It's so nice to change this stuff on the fly. It definitely adds a lot to the driving experience, and I think some other manufacturers could take note on that. I do want to film some more on this. I think a car like this makes a really strong first impression, and I really just want to kind of put some more miles on this and see what it's been like after I've lived with it a little bit longer. I think a lot of these first impressions will hold true, though. This is one of the cars that I will recommend to people who are looking for a really nice performance car around 30 grand. This is just, it's a sweet spot. It's more fun and exciting than the GTI. It's maybe less daily driver friendly, but I think it'll work. It's a good size. It's small, but it still packs. You can put a lot of stuff in here. You can still fit people in the back seats. It looks good. Interior's a little bit cheap and plasticky, but so is everything at this price point. Honestly, you're at this price point, you're paying for an incredible drivetrain and an incredible performance car. And the steering wheel feels nice. The shifter feels nice. So your touch points look good. These seats are great. I really like the design of them. I mean, this is not a cheap seat, and if you're a little bit wider of a fellow or lady, you may not fit as well, but 5'10", I'm about 140 pounds, fits me great, and I've got a little bit of wiggle room in here, but they are tight, so something to note. Definitely sit in one of these cars before you buy it. Yeah, it's cool. You have all this adjustability. Again, you know, this car needs some time to cool down between some of these performance modes. Like, you can't do launch controls back to back. Engine shift only lasts 20 seconds, and then you have to wait a couple minutes for it to engage again. But a lot of that is kind of just saving the drivetrain from itself. And after having driven these cars on track extensively, I'm really impressed at how they hold up and how well they can last out on the track. That's another advantage to the Veloster N over the Civic Type R, is that this thing doesn't really overheat. The brakes, the cooling system, you can go out and do a 20 or 30 minute track session in this and be totally fine. One of the few cars that's being made today that is track ready from the factory. Got the fans going right now, cooling things off. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see on this week. Hope everyone has a good holiday weekend. Take care. We'll see you guys later.